From real estate to real life and everything in between. The Brad Weisman Show. And now, your host, Brad Weisman.
All right. We are back. Yes, we are. We're back Thursday, 7 p.m. every week. Don't forget. We got a really good guest here tonight. And I say that every time. I say we always have a really good guest, but she's really fantastic. She's got some great stories to tell. It goes from gymnastics to a news anchor to corporate America to now public speaking or doing speaking arrangements all over the United States. And I call her the resilience queen because her big thing is about how people can become resilient, about things that go on in your life that maybe are some dark areas, some things that aren't as good, that you can get past those. And there's ways to get past those times in your life. And she's going to walk us through some of that right now. So Nina Sossaman-Pogue, she is hopefully here with us.
You got it, Brad.
Unless she ran
early there.
So how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Very welcome. I can tell you were an anchor at one point because you have that, like you're going to tell the news to me at some point. You know what I mean? Okay. I feel like you're going to say something, hey, this tree started on fire.
You're never more than an hour away from the latest news on your 24-hour news source. Yeah, I can go there if you want me to, but that's a long time
funny.
ago.
That is funny. But no, we'll get into that. But no, you've really gone through some different times in your life. And which is obviously why resilience is what kind of keeps coming up as something that you are able to share, something that you're able to help people with. Did that happen overnight or no? I mean, you went. Let's go back a little bit. You started as an almost Olympics. You were almost in the Olympics, right? You were on the U.S. gymnastics team, which is a huge deal at 14. So let's start there.
Yeah, so I say it's my chapters in the story of my life, the story that keeps unfolding. And I like being a queen, by the way, resilience queen. I'm going to take that. I'll own that.
You're more than welcome to.
I was thinking more like guru or something, but queen's nice.
Yeah, it sounds good.
It's good. Yeah, so I was a gymnast. I was a Navy brat growing up and found gymnastics. It was kind of the youngest of 4 kids. Like, put Nina somewhere. She has a lot of energy.
Right.
So gymnastics was my thing. And then I moved away from home when I was 13, and I moved into an Olympic training center. And
let's just go. You didn't get kicked out of the house, is what?
No. I had the opportunity.
When I saw that on your bio, I'm like, oh my God, she got kicked out of her house at 13. That's terrible. She must have been really bad. No, but I get it. You actually were dedicated to your talent.
Right. I had an opportunity to move into an Olympic training center at 13. Amazing. You sort of, I was an elite. I made that caliber of gymnastics where they were interested in training you for a coach would take you on. And so I did. I moved from at Florida. We were in Jacksonville at the time. My dad was the air base there. And I moved to Maryland, Silver Spring, Maryland, right outside of DC was where the training center was at 13. And then I made the U.S. team and I went all over the world, Japan, Hungary, Germany, and just doing my thing. Back in the day with Mary Lou Retton,
oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Bart Connor. Yeah, back in the day.
I remember those names.
Yeah, in the 80s. And then I didn't make the team. I always say, like, Mary Lou's.
How'd that hit?
Mary Lou's maiden name is, my maiden name's Rofi, and she was Retton. So we were like both R's and we roomed together. But I was not the top. I was kind of in the, like 5th or 6th through 12th, of those athletes. And only a few make the Olympic team. And then I bombed a qualifying meet. And so, after being on the cover of magazines and this big hype and moving away from home, I was so full of shame. I was embarrassed to go walk the halls of my high school. I felt like I was a failure. I'd let down my family and my friends and obviously my coaches. So it was a really difficult time. That was my first big, this is too much. I call them my thises because we all have and I have my story. You probably have yours too. Nobody gets to pass. But I was like, this is not part of the plan. This was not how it was supposed to go. So that was one of my first big failures where I had to figure out how to get, go forward from there. I felt like my life was ruined at the ripe old age of 16. Ridiculous.
So it's a defining moment, obviously. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's funny. I think we have, I was at a thing years ago. It was, I forget what the name it was, but it was a thing where you basically, it was a class where you figured out the defining moments in your life. You try to kind of figure out why you are who you are, dissect yourself and kind of go down to the core and go, okay, this makes sense of why I do this, whatever. Yeah. So that was a major defining moment there for you.
It was, and I had to, figure out who I was going forward, and I regrouped, and I did become one of the top recruits for college for gymnastics, and I went
Mm,
to LSU, great gymnastics program, D1 athlete, I had that experience, but then my
yeah.
freshman year at LSU, I blew out my knee in competition.
Oh,
So then I lost my sport altogether, and I
yeah,
really was floundering, like, "Who am I without this sport?" Because if
yeah.
you think about it, Brad, back then, it was like my sweatshirt and
Oh,
my
yeah.
bumper sticker, my T-shirt and stuff. Nowadays, it's these kids, Instagram and their TikTok, like, they really identify with whether it's their sport or band or, whatever
Yeah.
they're into. So, to lose that piece in me was really hard. I floundered a lot. I sometimes joke I ended up getting through the rest of college and graduating in booze and boys, but took me I
I
didn't
love the honesty.
I didn't always make the best decisions there for a while, but I found journalism. What I was very,
Mm,
through a lot of, tough times there. Well, when I lost my sport, in order to
yeah.
keep my scholarship, they asked me to work for the university. You had to back then. So I had to
Okay.
work for the athletic department, and they put me to work in the laundry room.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, well, not
Okay.
like laundry room, like washing cute little leotards.
No, 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 I'm
No.
thinking kinda just disgusting.
Yeah, so I worked
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
athletic laundry room. So
Oh,
I sometimes say my claim to fame was almost that I could have washed Shaquille O'Neal's jockstrap. That could be my claim to fame now. Thank goodness I didn't stay there.
oh my goodness, yeah, thank God that's not why you're on the podcast, for Christ's sakes. I
Right,
mean,
no, we won't be
imagine
talking
by
about
the
that.
way, the lady that washed the jock straps is on the podcast right now.
Yeah,
That's why
so
she's
proud.
on. Yeah.
My
Oh
proudest
my
moment.
God,
Yeah.
that's hilarious. So you go and do that. So now you're so what happens then? I mean, that's amazing where all through your childhood, gymnastics, that whole thing, everything was that's your life. That was it.
Right. It's what I knew about life, and if you think about it, when you're 19 and you lose your sport, I spent my whole life in the gym, and
Yeah.
if you do the math, it's 70 more than 75% of my life had been spent in a gym. So,
Wow.
of course, it felt like my whole life was over.
Right,
It was a
sure.
very real feeling. My life
Yeah.
experience, everything I've experienced up till that point, had been mostly that.
Yeah.
Now, I can see fast forward it, and it's part of what I do in my framework when I talk to people about resilience. I can see it fast forward by the time I was 50 and my
Yeah.
kids left for college,
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
that gymnastics was like 28%
Yeah.
of my life.
Exactly.
And if I
Yeah,
live to be
because
100, I need to drink less wine and take better care of myself. But if I live to be
no,
100.
no, wine's good. I think today it was in the news, it's good. Tomorrow
Oh,
they'll say it's not. You
okay.
know how
But
that is. Every other day it changes. So what I do is I only listen to the days that I like,
I
which
am
is the wine's
on
good. Yeah.
I'm on team
Right.
Brad on that one. I think
Yeah,
that's a
I'm
great
telling you, it's the way
idea.
to look at it. Yeah, because eggs were bad yesterday and now they're good today. You know how
Oh,
that is. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm all in
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
wine and chocolate. As long as I
Perfect.
can keep my wine
Oh,
and
yeah.
chocolate.
Absolutely. 2 together
Yeah.
is wonderful.
Anyway, so
So yeah.
so if I live to be 100, then gymnastics is only
Yeah.
15%.
Right.
But at the time, it felt like so much, and I really floundered trying to figure out who I was without it. And thank goodness I had some people in my life who pointed me in a different direction, and I found journalism, and I
Mm.
loved being in a newsroom. Once again, very competitive, fast moving. You have to think fast, move fast.
Yeah.
It's different every day.
You're on your
So
feet. You're thinking on your feet too. You're like, you know what I mean? News, anything with news, I always think is, I mean, obviously there's a teleprompter, but it's constantly changing. Everything's changing.
yeah, yeah, and there's a teleprompter once you become a news anchor, but when you're out in the field covering
That's all
something, there's
you.
not. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I loved it. So I did that for a while, and then that's how I found my way to Charleston. That's where I am now, Charleston, South
Okay.
Carolina.
Cool.
And speaking of real estate, we're real proud of our dirt around here. The real estate here, it's
Oh
pretty
yeah.
pricey.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, so I found my way into journalism, and I loved it. And then I became a news anchor and had real success there. I did have a period through that though in my 30s where they went younger and blonder, and I got
Oh my
laid off
gosh.
in a bunch of layoffs. So you
Is
just
that
never
really so
know.
that's something that happened? Like they went towards a different look for the news?
I
That's
won Charleston's
amazing.
favorite news anchor 7 years in a row, and you'll like this. I won it on a Thursday, and then on Friday, and it comes out in the paper, picture of me and stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
and then, on Friday, I'm in the newsroom doing my thing, and we're getting ready to go down. The weather guy and I are gonna go cut a news brief at 3 o'clock, like, "Hey," like you see on the news, "Coming up
Yeah,
later, this
yeah.
happened," and, um, so we were walking down to get it to cut that, and the GM, the general manager comes, like, one of his people comes around the corner and says, "Hey, Nina, the GM wants to see you." And
Oh,
I
no.
think they're gonna I just won this award. I think I'm gonna get like a bonus or
Right, right.
or a
Or
pat on the
promotions or
back or a
something,
thank
yeah.
you or something. No, 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 no. They pulled me in and he pulled me in there and the young woman from HR came and sat down across from me and they said, "Per your contract, we are releasing you without cause."
Oh
And
my
I was like,
gosh.
"Ooh." Yeah. So that was another big
Wow.
this, like, this was not part of the plan, but,
Yeah.
years later when I got into tech and I was part of, difficult financial decisions and force
And
ranking people,
and
and
but that's
I could see it.
wild. How do you go from the anchor to tech? Like, were you always into tech? Is that something that you thought, "This is what I wanna do eventually," or is it just this is just something that happened?
No, so I love doing news, and I think I would have stayed there, like, for even longer, but
Right.
I had some things going on in my life, and I was looking like, "What else is out there?"
Yeah.
And I did like a lot of people do. I kinda said, "What am I good at outside of like, reading a
Yeah.
teleprompter and having nice hair? There's gotta be more to me than that." So I had to
Right.
figure out what that looked like, and so I encourage other people to do this when they're in these life transitions and if they're transitioning careers. I met with people that I admired. I met with a guy who was I had coffee with a guy who was in marketing, ran a marketing
Mm.
firm, and I'm like, "If you had to hire me, what would you hire me for?" And, he's like, "I would have you do, like, car commercials," and I was like,
Yeah, right, right.
"No, no, no, I don't wanna do that." And then I met with, a woman who ran the Center for Women, and I said, "If you've been in a lot of boardrooms with me and at a lot of events with me, what would you hire me for?" And she had some ideas, and then I, had the opportunity to meet with some other folks in the tech space,
Yeah.
and it was very different. So I had a buddy who had a startup, and Google had just very much timing and luck. There's some luck involved in
Yeah.
it.
Are your kitchen and bathroom remodels a little overdue? Well, now's your chance to call First Response Contracting. John Sellers will take care of you. 484-256-7136. They do residential and commercial, and they're licensed and insured. Give them a call at 484-256-7136. Of course.
Google had just bought YouTube,
Oh,
and
yeah?
he's like,
Mhm.
"Video's gonna be big online someday." Remember, this
Oh
is
my gosh.
2007. This is 2007, video is gonna be a big deal. I gotta figure out how to make videos, how big that file is, how to put them online, all those things. I need somebody. And he and I had sat on some charity boards and things.
Yeah.
And so, he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And,
Mm.
I left TV and went to tech to stand up a media studio and start on the ground floor of this new thing. Like, YouTube was, it was all real new back then.
Yeah.
And it was like, "What are we gonna do with video online?" And look where it's come now. It's so
Oh,
neat to
it's
see.
crazy, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
amazing.
he hired me to do that, and then I being, both a gymnast who can fall down and get back up and, being a journalist who can learn fast, I learned fast, and
Yeah.
I moved into different areas of the company.
Good for you. And now obviously that's passed, and now you've moved on to did you just retire from there, or how'd
Yeah,
that
I left there I'd done this about 12 years, and I was the vice president of marketing and communications when we took the company public. So
Oh,
I got
wow.
to do the IPO
Wow, that's
roadshow.
cool.
Goldman Sachs was lead left. I got to get on the little jet and fly up to
Oh, that's
Teterboro
sweet.
Airport, and
Yeah.
get out of the fancy little Teterboro and, be all that,
Yep.
and, it was a really cool time to be a part of it, and so we had a very successful IPO. Forbes magazine had it as one of the top 10 tech IPOs of the year,
Wow.
and so that was a financial opportunity for me.
Yeah, I would think
Um,
so. Hopefully you
yeah,
were vested.
I was very much so. I had a lot of
Yeah.
options.
Yeah, good for you.
So it gave me the opportunity to let my kids go to any college they wanted, to pay off some debt, those
Yeah,
kind of
that's
things.
wonderful.
I'm not a big house, fancy car kind of
Yeah.
person, but there was stuff that it felt so good to have that worry off me.
Sure,
And so
absolutely.
after that happened, then I started looking at life a little differently and said, "Okay, now without having to be the breadwinner and having to do those things, what do I wanna do? Like, who do I
Yeah.
wanna be? What do I wanna give back?" And that's where the first book came from, and that's where the speaking
And
came
what
from.
was the book? Is that the This Is Not the End?
Yeah,
Or
so
no?
the
Is that
first book is "This Is Not the End:
Yeah.
Strategies to Get You Through the Worst Chapters of Your Life."
Yeah, yeah, and this is where resilience comes in.
It is, and it took me a while, like you said, to get to that word, but when I started doing some research, I became this go-to person for people when they were going through a tough time because my stories were also public. People
Yeah.
saw me not
Well,
make
and
the
yeah,
Olympic
well,
team. People
let's
yeah,
dig into that a little bit. The fact that the reason you have, let's just say credibility on knowing what it's like to be resilient. You told us a little story, And I think actually we should go there because it's going to make it that people that are listening go, wow, she had a bad thing happen. And look where she is. She's doing podcasts. She's doing speaking arrangements all over the United States or all over the world. And she got through something that was really tough. So do you mind telling that story that you told us before we started recording?
Sure, sure. And I always ask beforehand because I'm not
Yeah, I
here to
gotcha.
trauma dump and I don't want to,
No.
it's triggery for some of your listeners. So I'll tell you a kind of watered down version
Yeah,
of it.
sure.
But yeah, so think about like the resilience piece. So I didn't make the Olympic team, and then I blew out my knee in college, and then I'd gotten fired. I'd gone through a divorce, all these things that already happened in my life.
Yeah.
And I was a very popular news anchor at the time. And I went to pick my kids up. I took a day off of work to go pick my kids up from the school bus. And so I, you know, went on a beautiful sunny day, and it was a crowded bus stop, and the bus comes, and all of our kids go piling off, and I'm there with my best friends, and she has this new like 11-month-old baby that's crawling around. We're playing with the baby, and then the bus comes, and all of these moms and siblings and spouses, and we're all just having a gorgeous
Mhm.
Charleston October day. Uh, and then in the commotion of all that, when it's time to go, I, throw my kids in the car. Hey, it's time to get going. I had driven over because we were going to run errands. It was special for me to be home.
Mhm.
And in all of that commotion, no one had noticed that my friend's sweet baby had crawled under my car.
Mm.
And I backed up. And he was badly injured. He lived. He is in college now,
Which
but
is
he was very
incredible.
badly injured, lots of head injuries, and he, it was days, weeks, months before we knew he was gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And in that time, because, I'm such a public person, there were news trucks on my front yard,
Oh,
there were prayer vigils all over town. It became very much a part of who I was, and I didn't wanna be this person.
yeah.
I wanted to be the world-class athlete and everybody's favorite news anchor. I
Yeah.
didn't wanna be the lady who had injured her friend's baby, and so I had a really hard time figuring out how to go forward after that, and I went into a really dark place, and thank goodness I had some good people around me because I really thought I couldn't imagine. I kept replaying everything that I should have done differently or could
Yeah.
have done or maybe that, shouldn't have taken the day off work, and then I kept looking at the future, and I just couldn't see anything happy, and I couldn't ever see myself being happy. I'm like, "The world's just better if I wasn't here. I can't do
Oh,
this." So I
yeah.
went through a really tough time, and that's where part of this
What
resilience
got you
stuff
out
comes
of
from.
that? What got you out of that? Like, what was, like, the one thing that you can just think of, or maybe there's many things, but your family, obviously, maybe friends and, talking to people? I mean, what got you out?
Yeah, family and friends, obviously, the people is a big part of my framework that I talk about. I had to get several things, and that's where my framework comes from because
Yeah.
I can see how I got through that. Okay.
Yep.
And then I
Good.
can look back at how I got through the gymnastics and the getting fired, and it's the same. And then I did
Mm.
research on the commonalities when people go through failures or through difficult times, and it's these same four things. But what got me really through that then was one, I had a good therapist. I'm big into people and
Mm.
I'm very pro
Yeah.
therapy. But what he did for me was say, hey, it's not always going to be like this. Like the news cycle is going to move on. Five
Mm.
years from now, it's going to feel different than it does now. He got me out of my own headspace in the
Yeah.
moment and said, the news is going to go on to something else. The story's going to move on and you've got to be here for it. Your kids are little. They're going to need you. Like he got me thinking ahead, which was a
Yeah.
big
Good
part of it.
therapist.
That's the timeline piece that I talk about.
Yeah.
Just like with gymnastics, like, I thought it was my whole world back then. It's not my whole world.
Yeah, because 'cause you're looking back
Right.
a lot of times. We look back and so, yes, that was a large part of your life, but when you look forward, there's creativity. You can create what's going forward.
Right.
It's not it
I
hasn't
call
happened.
it yeah, I call it all the blank space ahead on that timeline.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
If you
Well,
draw
you
a
had a
line
good
on a piece of
therapist.
paper I had a very good therapist. If
Yeah.
you draw a line on a piece of
Yeah.
paper, I have people do this and put 10 little dots, like 10 how old you are, 10, 20, 30, 40, to live to be 100. And then
Yeah.
I say, "Okay, put a dot on where you are right now." And then there's all that blank space ahead. And I
Yeah.
even do that. So that's the one thing that I did. And then it's called this framework. So that's the T is this timeline thinking, this
Mhm.
perspective, play it forward. And then the second part is humans. I did have some good people in my life. I had a
Yeah.
good therapist. My husband really protected me from a lot of things. My ex-husband at the time took the kids. So like it took the
Wow.
village. So it took a lot of us
Yeah.
to help handle through that. And I always say you have to edit your people. So if you go through something
Mm.
difficult, who's helping, who's hurting. And sometimes some people who love you the most are not helping, and you have to kind of get them out of the way during difficult times.
Yeah.
So that was that piece. And then the other is this isolate piece, like not what happened before and not what may happen in the future, but what can you actually do?
Mm.
And I really had some good help with, hey, let's go back on the air. Let's define what, I held hands with this mom. We walked down the hall of the
Oh my
hospital. We said we were
gosh.
going to get through it together. We, took advantage of the platform that we had, and we used really positive language. The doctors were, amazing, and it was miraculous. And we were all, praying for him and that kind of stuff. So the
Yeah.
language we used was really key. So that was the last piece of it. So this whole timeline, humans, isolate it. What can you actually take action on? And then let's edit the language in your head. I wasn't the villain.
Mm.
I was, just a person who was involved in this. It was an accident. Getting to that
Yeah.
word was really hard for me to get to.
Oh, interesting. Getting to the word accident.
Yeah. You just, accidents should have someone who's like, it was just hard. It was just
And
hard.
these are also stories you normally hear about somebody else.
Right. Right.
You know
And
what I
I
mean?
was,
And so that's why when it's happening to you, you're like, okay, this should be happening to somebody else, not me.
I should be reporting this on the news. I say I went
Yes.
from reporting the headlines to being the headlines.
Oh,
And,
yes.
I'd done
Yes.
these stories before. And then
Yeah.
once we did some homework on it and looked at it, it was like, oh, this actually happens more often
Oh, yeah.
than you think. And most times they don't survive. So I guess we were,
Yeah, you're lucky.
in
I've
fortunate.
around here, we've had situations where it's the parent that did it and they didn't make it.
Right. Right. So
Yeah, so
it
but luckily he's in college or
he
he
is.
or she's in college and
He's
obviously,
embarrassed.
do you still stay in touch?
We've been in touch, one of the reasons I went back on the air for a year or so, and then I said, I need to be less public. I need to kind of do my own thing, step away. So
Yeah.
I stepped away and, but I obviously from a distance, I'm always cheering for him
Yeah.
and seeing what
Yeah,
he's
of
doing.
course.
And
Of
his
course.
parents are still here in town. And,
Oh, good.
yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's good. And that's the reason, or that's many of the reasons that you've come through a lot of different things. And so you are good at training people on how to get past these certain times in their life.
Yeah. And I didn't know that I would end up here, Brad. It wasn't
Yeah,
something that I planned for. Most of us aren't where we planned when we were little
sure.
children. Like when you were a little boy, did you plan on being in real estate and doing a
No,
podcast?
not at
No,
all. I was
no.
going to be a rock and roll star.
Right, I was gonna
It
be
didn't
a
happen.
vet and an Olympian, that was it. So, how we react to the world, like, the world changes around us, and how we
Mhm.
react to that is where we end up. And so I didn't think I would end up here, but I got to that point where I became, because people knew the things I'd gone through, I
Mhm.
became this go-to person. And one time I had a buddy of mine, I heard a knock at the door, I go open the door, and a neighbor standing there with 2 beers in his hands, with tears running down his eyes.
Hey guys, I want to take a second and thank Comfort Pro. Since 2001, Comfort Pro has been helping customers stay comfortable where they live, work, and play. They have 24/7 emergency service and a 100% customer satisfaction guarantee. If you need help with your heating and air conditioning or indoor air quality, call Comfort Pro at 484-917-1803. Mention the show and receive a free humidifier with the installation of a complete system.
Down his face. And I was like, "Are you okay?" And he said, "I just lost my job. I can't go
Oh.
home. I don't know how to tell my wife. I don't know what to do."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "I got you." We came through, walked through the house and sat on the end of the dock. And I said, "Okay, let's work through these things." And I knew I was helping. And that was just
Mm.
one instance. I had other
Yeah.
ones that had happened too. I knew I was helping people. I knew the things I had learned and experienced were helping, and the books I'd read and the cognitive behavior therapy things I'd gone through and the PTSD
Mhm.
workbooks I'd read. I knew that I was able to help other people, but I didn't have it organized and put together in a way that I could help more than one person at a time.
Yeah.
So that's why I left corporate, because I said, something, what if something happens to me? I'm not here to share this with my own children,
Yeah.
because I have 3 adult kids now,
Yeah.
or with people who I love, or just if I have this, how do I put it together and put it out in the world? So that's where the book came from. And it's my mashup of life experience and stoicism and cognitive
Yeah.
behavior therapy and a little neuroscience thrown in.
It's awesome. It's really cool. And the experiences are incredible. So let's go down through here before we would wrap it up. We got some time here yet. The reverse resume I thought was interesting. I've never heard of anybody say that before. I always like to pick out things that I've never heard before. What is a reverse resume? Like, how, that didn't make sense to me. So what is that?
Excellent. I love it that you picked up on that. So I coined that phrase a couple years ago, and we all have a reverse resume. And I say, if you take a piece of paper and again, draw that
Mhm.
line across it, and above the line is all of your accolades, all the stuff you would see on LinkedIn, all the
Mhm.
stuff
Yeah.
you would put on your resume goes above the line. On
Okay.
like on the above the line on the ages when it happened to you.
Got it.
You graduated, or you got an accreditation, or you won an award, or you had a baby, or you took it. All the good stuff goes across the line, the stuff that you would be proud of.
Yeah.
And then below the line, I encourage people to go and say, now let's look at all the things you've gotten through. You've been fired or divorced, or you
Uh,
raised a child with a disability, or you were bullied in high school, or like all like there,
yep.
nobody gets a pass. Everybody's been through some stuff.
Yeah.
So you put that down at the bottom, and then you can sort of it's kinda neat, you can connect the dots, and it does, like, this up and down of
Oh,
life.
wow.
It looks a little like an echocardiogram
I
where
was gonna say, it looks like somebody's heartbeat.
yeah, you don't wanna be flatline, so
No, no,
that's
no,
good.
that's not good.
That'd
That's
be
not
that'd
good.
be
Yeah.
bad, that'd be a boring life.
Yep.
So this
Yep.
is life, it has these highs and lows, and this reverse resume is all the stuff below the line, and I
Mm.
will argue that that's what makes you who you are, not the
Oh,
wins.
absolutely. I
The
love
stuff
that.
down
I
below,
love
your reverse resume, and I have executives do this when I do executive offsites, and I'm like, "You better hire some people who have some stuff down below the line." I don't always say stuff,
Interesting.
but you need
Yeah.
that down below the line because when stuff hits the fan, you're gonna
Yeah.
need these people. You don't want people who haven't been through some things. But that
So
reverse
true.
resume is key.
Yeah. I love that is nothing like what I thought it was gonna be. That is awesome. I love that. And you know what's fun? I never heard anybody say that before. That's why you're here, because this is great. You have down here another new thing that we'll talk about that you brought up was FOMO culture. You said you talk about we're constantly connected. And there's a thing called FOMO culture that you say is, yeah, you're hurting. Are we hurting ourselves? How are we doing with that? Tell me about the FOMO culture. Because I know I get FOMO. I mean,
Well,
everybody.
people talk about FOMO, and we all have it. We before there was anything online, we just saw the neighbor come home with a new car, and
Yeah.
we saw, somebody have an outfit that we like, or somebody that was in better shape than us. But
Do you
now
think
we
it's
see
do
it.
you think it's actually the new jealous?
It's jealous. It's a little different because it's feeding.
Right.
We're feeding this culture.
Ah,
But
gotcha,
there's
gotcha.
obviously some jealousy
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
It's this fear of missing out, or fear of
Yep.
missing out on a different life. It's
Ah, yes,
it's this fear of
yes.
missing out on, "Wait, why didn't I, marry that guy or do that thing or take that
Because
career?"
nobody sees the reverse resume.
And nobody
Think
people
about it, nobody sees the downs on Facebook and on
right,
Instagram. Everybody sees the ups,
100%.
on life. They don't see the downs. They don't see that somebody, was in an accident or somebody was this or something. You don't put that stuff on there. You put
No.
up stuff that makes you look great, So it's interesting. So that's what you're saying is happening.
So, yeah, it's this FOMO, it's this fear of missing out, not just on the party or the thing, but on a different life, on something
Mm,
else that could have been. And here's my favorite example of it. There's 2. There's one, okay, when's the like, you go on a vacation and you
mhm.
fly somewhere and you do this great vacation, you saved up for it. First, you made a
Yep,
goal that you wanted to do it, you saved the money, you got excited about it, you packed, you went, and say it's some tropical
yeah,
you did the snorkeling, you got the tan, you drank the pina colada, like, you had this great vacation.
right.
And then you get on the plane on the way home, and you're, like, still glowing in it and, still sunburned. And you're on your plane on the way home, and then a little thing comes up, bloop, in your app, and on your phone that says, "Thank you for visiting, give us our rating," and you do your little summary, and then
Yep,
as soon as you hit submit, a little something else comes up and goes, "Thank you, and here are 5 trips that people like you are taking.
right, right,
Don't miss out on this. Go
right.
ahead and, if you like this, here are 5
Yep.
trips that other
You're gonna
people are
like this
taking."
too. Yes,
Yes,
yeah,
and if you don't sign up now, you're gonna miss out on that. So it's
yep,
this we never get to just be happy. It's like, "Oh, shoot, I'm already missing out on the next
yep.
thing."
Yeah,
That's
it's
one
so true, and that is the way we are.
Yeah,
We always say about being in the present moment. I mean, that's the problem is sometimes we don't give ourselves to just be in it and actually enjoy it and go, "Okay, this was great." We're looking to the next trip or the next thing to do. It's so true, so true.
yeah,
So
and
that is that is an
the other
issue.
piece what is that?
It's an issue for
It
us. I mean,
is.
for people, it's not good.
It's a problem, we all do it, I do it. I
Yeah.
look at other speakers and I'm like, "They were on 6 stages," and they were like, they get a bigger stage, they get whatever.
Right,
It's so
right.
silly. I'm doing my thing. I am not them. I've lived my own life and gotten to here.
That's right.
And I started a keynote the other day, and I was like, they did my intro, world-class athlete, like the whole
Yeah,
thing,
yeah, yeah,
Emmy
yeah.
award-winning news anchor. And I walked out and went, well, actually, I'm not successful today. I'm on a smaller stage than so and so, and I'm not making as much as so. Like, when
Yeah,
do we get to be successful?
yeah, yeah.
But the other example of that we all do, that also has to do with our telephones. I do this whole thing with this book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, and it's all about behavior science and how we cause our own anxiety and stress because animals, once they're
Mhm.
in immediate danger, all the stress response, that cortisol, the
Yep.
norepinephrine, like all that, the adrenaline is there. But then as soon as the stress response is gone, it's gone.
Mhm.
And they go back, and we are constantly going to what ifs, and
Yep.
we even imagine things. We imagine the lion's chasing us even when it's not.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
And so I talk about a zebra running across and the lion chasing it, but then I have the zebra, pop into some tall grass to reset, and I'll say, and then our zebra, who just was such a good zebra, and in like the most amazing, beautifully striped, just the right hooves, right size heart to be have to be able to outrun a lion. Our
Yeah.
zebra ducks in, and as it resets, our zebra pulls out his phone to see what's the rest of the animal kingdom doing,
Oh,
and he sees flamingo on the beach, and he's like, look at flamingo on the beach. I wish I was flamingo.
yeah,
I wanna wear pink, I'm sick of these stripes. I wanna eat shrimp, like, he just outran a lion.
yeah,
He's so good at doing what he does, but in a moment, we can look at somebody else and go, "I wish I was doing what they were doing." But,
yeah,
like, Flamingo would have been eaten by the lion, you know?
yeah,
So
yeah,
we all have to we have to get better at being really proud of what we're good at
yeah, sure.
and living in that space and quit looking at each other wishing that we were a different animal, because we've all, got our own makeup and
Like,
our own
oh,
stacks of things.
absolutely. And you're right. We do that as I think a lot of people do that. They look at the other person on social media and go, "Oh my gosh, look what they have,"
Yep.
not realizing what you have and what you and having you should have gratitude for what you have.
I kn
Obviously.
I do. There's some and I'll be honest, there are some speakers out there who I really admire, and they're just crushing it, and they're doing these big
Yeah,
stages and this great stuff, and I'll think, "Man, I wish I could do that." And then I'll remind myself, "Oh, they have never even had any kids yet. Like, they're
yeah,
30 something years
right.
old. I have 3 adult children and these careers I've already had, but I'm wishing I was this 30 something year old who has this big stage." So,
Yeah, but I
that's
don't think
not
the
my
age should hold
yeah.
you back. I mean, you're how long you been doing the speaking, the public speaking?
Oh, I'm just using that as an example. I'm doing
Oh,
fine.
yeah. Yeah, you're doing
But
great.
yeah, so I'm coming up, of course, because I speak on resilience. I launched this speaking in 2020.
Oh my gosh, that's oh, yeah, there you go, 2020. Yeah, that wasn't a good time, not a good
No,
time. Oh
no.
my gosh,
I learned very quickly
unbelievable.
about the speaking business because I booked a bunch of gigs,
Oh,
and, when you book, you get half up front, and then they pay you the other half when you deliver. That's how
okay.
my contracts were set up. So I
Right,
had a
right,
bunch booked for the year, and then everything shut down in 2020 because the
and you had to
pandemic.
give it back.
You did, and I'd already
Yeah.
spent it
Oh my gosh,
because I didn't
that's not
know.
good.
I had no idea. So I'm like, "Oh, I'm
That's
so screwed."
amazing.
Anyway,
Unbelievable.
so
Well,
you
thanks.
learn. You live and
There's
learn.
one thing I wanted to talk about, yeah, real quick, and it was a testimonial that I saw that I thought was really, really cool. And it was, basically somebody put a testimonial on your page, and it said, "She grabs you by the brain, pulls you in, and holds you there." I thought that was such a great testimonial. I
I
mean, I'm sure you've read that one, you know about it. I think it's on your website, but what a great testimonial. It was really cool.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, this, Tom wrote that. I can't
Yeah.
remember his last name,
Tom
but
Satterley or something or
Satterley. Yeah, I
Satterley or something
spoke
like
at
that? Yeah.
hey, they're in real estate too, so that's your
Oh, okay,
world.
cool. There we go.
Yeah, so I spoke at their conference, down in Savannah, I think it was. Actually, I've spoken at their conference twice.
Yeah.
His team really liked me and brought me back to speak at their next larger conference. But some people,
Cool.
I don't do just my story from the stage. I really get them thinking about their own life and their own things that they've gone through, and I like the opportunity to make people feel, obviously, laugh, cry, all
Sure.
those things. I do a lot of, humor because I think I'm funny, maybe not.
Yeah.
But,
No, you are. Yeah.
I love the opportunity to really get people think about things in different ways, and
Yeah.
I think with that one, we did a lot around resilience on the definition of it. It's not persistence and grit, how it's so different from
Yeah.
persistence and grit. People get them
Yep.
mixed up. And then we did a lot around goal setting because every time you set a goal, you are asking yourself to make a change, to get out of your comfort
Yep.
zone. And
Mhm.
so why our bodies and our brains don't like change, where that comes from. So anyway, thank you for bringing
You're
that up.
you're yeah.
Tom, that was a really, really good testimonial, and I am proud of the
Yeah.
fact that I can get people thinking. I think I did say I responded to it somewhere, or maybe I'm online back when he did it and said, "Hey, I did give his brain back. I promise."
That's good. That's good. He probably needs it. He probably
Yeah,
needs it.
yeah.
Thanks for so much for coming. How do people get in touch with you? I mean, what's the best way? Maybe just rattle off your socials or whatever so they can find you.
Great. On Instagram, I'm Nina Speaks, and it's Nina period SP underscore EAK because there's other people named Nina who speak, but Nina Speaks. You can find me on Facebook on Nina Sossaman-Pogue, on LinkedIn, Nina Sossaman-Pogue. And I just launched a workshop, the Now What workshop for anybody who's going through a tough time. And the whole concept around that is, it's okay to not be okay. It's just not
Yeah.
okay to stay that way. So
Oh, I like that. That's very
help
good.
you figure out a way forward. So, but yeah, you can find me anywhere where in social. I have TikTok. I'm working on it. My team is younger than me, and they're pushing me to do
Yeah.
some
It's
fun things. So
I
we'll
think
see.
the other ones are more important anyway.
Anyway, but yeah, find me on Instagram. I do daily inspiration or motivation on Instagram. I think motivation is a lot like a shower. You can't just do it once. You keep going back. You need it.
Right.
You need it often. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Thanks so much for being on here today. I really, really appreciate it.
This has been great, Brad. I appreciate it. I feel like I rambled a little bit, but it's
Nah, you're good.
wonderful
You're
to
good.
chat
It
with
was
you.
great conversation. Great conversation. Thanks so much. All right. There you go. Nina Sossaman-Pogue, resilience queen is what I'm going to call her. And I think she's going to use that, which is actually cool. But no, you want to check her out. You can just look up her name. Her name is spelled a little different. But if you go to see us on Facebook or Instagram, whatever, we're going to have all of her information there. So you don't have to be searching for it or anything like that. All right. Thanks for joining us again every Thursday at 7 p.m. All right. We'll see you next week.